What's happening? Now, you don't have any problems on your own to do here. I'm going to be, whatever I don't do, I'll be up at the front to finish with you guys after I'm done doing some other things back here. So, today we're going to complete the process of solving the equation. So, what we know we have x to the second. Look at what you have for x's. And you have x to the first. So because I have these two things, there's going to be two answers because that's the highest exponent. So you put x equals x equals. Now, whenever you have x different powers, you're going to have to get the equation equal to 0. And we already have it equal to 0. So as we did yesterday, then we're set in that regard. Okay? So now that we have equals 0, we need to factor the three terms that are over here because we have 1, 2, 3 terms. So it's set. So I make my boxes. I make my GCF box. GCF equals. And then I make my second box. Make my T box. T. So the GCF, we don't have the negative in front. We don't have x on every single line here. Okay, so I can't use x. And also if I go 2, 13, and 7, I end up with 1 as the GCF. So again, if the GCF's 1, then we don't do it. Okay, so then what I do after that is I label my A, B, and C, and I connect my A to my C. Okay, and I multiply those two numbers. I take positive 2 times negative 7. And I got 14, which is a negative number. So I need to know that that's negative because that tells me I'm going to minus, and that minus needs to equal 13. Now 13 is negative, which is important, so we want to label the 13 with a negative sign. Okay, so if I know if I divide 14 by 1, I get 14, and if you take 14 minus 1, that's 13. So right away it's just these two, 1 and 14. I don't need to go further. Now we need to sign the numbers off. So 14 is a larger number. It's going to have the same sign as this 13. So 13 is negative. So 14 is negative. And up here, when I took A times C, if I got a negative, the signs have to be the opposite. So we already have minus 14, so I'd have plus 1. Okay, so now A here, the A is 2x to the second power. How I make my parentheses depends on the A. And if it's not a 1, x to the second, we need 2 lines of parentheses. So I start with my 2. Then my x to the second, I go x, x, and then the plus 1 and the minus 14. Okay, then I GCF these. Okay, so 2 and 1. The GCF's 1, so if I divide by 1, that just keeps it the same, 2x plus 1. Okay, cross that out. Now 2 and 14, the GCF's 2. Okay, so that's 1x minus 7, okay, because you divide them both by 2. Okay, now here's what I do to get my two answers. I put equals 0, and then I put F1 and F2 and set each one of those factors equal to 0. So 2x plus 1 could equal 0, or 1x minus 7 could equal 0. Okay, so I dot my x and circle it, and I need to minus 1. Okay, and I have 0 take away 1, which is negative 1. So I have 2 times x equals negative 1. And then I'm going to divide both sides by the 2. Okay, negative 1 by 2. That's negative 0.5. That's your first solution. Okay, and the other one I dot my x. I add 7. 0 plus 7, 7. So 1 times x equals 7. And then divide by 1. 7 divided by 1 is 7. Okay, so it's these two answers. Okay, my next problem. 5x to the second power plus 6x equals negative 2 minus 5x. Okay, so what do I have here? Well, I have x to the power of 2, and I've also got x to the power of 1. There's two of them, but I know I have x to the power of 1. So that means there's two answers because that's the highest power. And with the x to the second, the x to the 1, we have to have the equation equal to 0. Okay, so we're not set here like we were here because I don't have the equal 0. Now, here's what you need to do to set it. First, you go blank x to the second plus blank x to the first plus blank equals 0. Okay? Now, here's how you fix this. Okay? The stuff on this side is garbage, okay? Garbage. You want to bring this crap over to this side, and the way to do it is simply to make these opposite. So just make them opposite right here, okay? And then you'll be able to add them together. So that minus 2 switch is going to, when I bring it over here, it's going to just switch to a plus 2. Just switch it right there. And that minus 5 switches to a plus 5. And now I can just round up my numbers. So for x to the second, I just have the 5. It's the only time I see x to the second. And for the x to the first, and then we cross that out, I've got 6 positive and 5 positive. We can now add those together after we make these into opposites because it's like I'm bringing them over here. So I take 6 plus 5, which is 11. Okay, and then for non-x numbers, all we have is that positive 2, so I just put 2 in there. Okay, and now it's set. Okay, so now I can make my boxes. GCF. And then my T-chart box. Okay, so the GCF, the 5's not negative, so the GCF's not negative. We don't have X on everything because that 2 doesn't have an X. And 5, 11, and 2 just gives me a GCF of 1. Okay, so if the GCF's 1, let's not do it. Then I go A, B, C, and I connect the A to the C because I'm going to multiply those. So I'm going to be taking positive 2, 5 times positive 2, and that's 10. Now it's positive 10. So getting a positive means I'm going to add to try to find the B, which is 11. Now 11 is positive, so I put a plus 11. Okay, now this goes pretty quickly again because if I divide 10 by 1, I get 10. And if you add 10 and 1, that's 11. So it's these two factors here. Now I need to sign the factors. So I take this plus 11 means the larger number is 11. Okay? Then I can pretty much forget about that. Now I have a positive up there, so that means the signs cannot be opposite. They have to be the same. So if I have a plus 10, we're going to have a plus 1. And A is equal then to 5x to the second. Okay, so that A right there is 5. So we want to make these, and we want to put 5, 5, and then XX, and then plus 1, plus 10. Okay, so 5 and 1, the GCF of 5 and 1. That's 1, okay? So you can divide them by 1, but it's just going to stay the same, 5x plus 1. And this is my F1. Now 5 and 10 need to be factored, 5 comma 10. And that's 5, so then I need to actually underline both these and divide by 5. And that's going to be 1x plus 2. That's your F2. Okay, now to get the answers, this is why you have to get it set equal to 0, because now the two factors equal 0. Okay, so either 5x plus 1 could equal 0, or my second factor, 1x plus 2, could equal 0. So I dot, circle, and then I undo the operations. I minus 1. 0 minus 1 is not 0. If you take away 1 from 0, you're at negative 1. So 5 multiplied by x equals negative 1, and then divide by 5. The answer is not 5, though. I have to take negative 1 and divide it into 5 parts. Each part's negative 0.2. Okay, then I minus 2, so 1 times x equals negative 2. Divide by 1, and then negative 2 divided by 1 is negative 2. So again, if the equation is not set, you just switch every number over here to its opposite, and then you'll be able to add them as you move on down here, which we'll talk about here in a bit.